Samuel couldn't forget the fact that I'd been hurt in the past. In our second year of marriage, he became involved with a college intern at his company. Amidst the scattered clothes on the floor, I held my forehead and asked him why. Looking at me with a calm expression, he said, "She's clean." That was when I understood. He was still hung up on the fact that I had been hurt. He was sure no one would want someone like me. "Pearl, no one else would ever want you but me." But he was wrong. He was never my only choice. The first time I noticed Samuel's wandering interest was when I found a used lipstick in the car's passenger side crevice. It was a YSL number 610, and it wasn't mine. When he leaned over to fasten my seatbelt, he froze for a moment, then smiled and said, "At the last reunion, I drove everyone home, and one of the girls got carsick, so she sat up front. She must have left it behind. I'll message her and check." I tilted my head and handed him the lipstick. Samuel accepted it with a smile, blinking quickly. "Honey, you really trust me that much?" I kissed his face, so close to mine, but my thoughts drifted back to our wedding 2 years before. His face, flushed from the wine, his words slurred with intoxication. Over and over, he spoke of how he had loved me in secret. His eyes shone with a strange brightness. He'd said, "Pearl, I'll be good to you for life." "Only you." I replied, "Of course I believe you." It's a shame. From sensing something was off to catching him red-handed. Life is ruthless, never granting any buffer. When I came home early from a business trip, I wasn't feeling well. Unlocking the door, I saw scattered shoes in the entryway, a pair of pink, strappy heels among them, standing out. I froze for a moment, then looked up to see clothes strewn across the living room floor, one piece after another, leading to the master bedroom. The door upstairs was open, and I could hear a man and woman laughing and teasing, close like lovers. "Stop it. I'll go make us something to eat." A young woman's voice cut through the air. The bedroom door opened, and the girl on the second floor suddenly met my gaze. Her almond-shaped eyes flickered, her face paled, and she looked like a startled rabbit. Hesitantly, she whispered, "Miss Pearl." Samuel's new intern, Ella. I'd met her before, not long after she'd joined the company. She'd made a mistake at work, and at a department dinner, Samuel had publicly reprimanded her harshly. I'd run into her in the restroom afterward, her eyes red, and I'd offered her a few comforting words. She had hugged me, crying. Later, she added me on WeChat and often asked for work advice. I responded each time. And now? I looked at the red marks trailing from her neck down to her chest. Suddenly, I felt like the biggest fool. "You should go," Samuel's voice came from behind her. Ella, head down, quickly picked up her clothes, put on her coat, and brushed past me. I looked up at Samuel. He was in a bathrobe, tied carefully around his waist, covering every trace. The exhaustion from my long flight made my headache worse. I forced down the fury rising in my chest. I asked, "Why?" Samuel looked at me, smiling, as calm as always. "She's clean, Pearl. I'm her first man. You're different. She's clean. So, I'm dirty." I pressed my lips together. Suddenly, I didn't want to hear anything more. I locked myself in the guest bedroom, exhausted as I climbed into bed, answering a few work messages with my last ounce of energy. There was also a message from that person. Above it was a photo. Samuel was at a bar, his arm around Ella, leaning down to kiss her. A new message popped up. "Did you get home? Did you surprise them?" "Yes." After replying, my heavy eyelids closed. When I woke, the first thing I felt was a cold towel on my forehead. A glass of warm water was on the bedside table. Locking the door hadn't mattered. Samuel and I both had keys. I reached for the glass, and my small movement must have been heard. Footsteps sounded outside, and Samuel entered, holding a bowl of steaming porridge, smiling. "You're awake? You never take care of yourself, you caught a cold." "Just in time, the porridge is ready." He sat on the bed, scooping up a spoonful, blowing on it, and brought it to my lips. I lowered my eyes. The next moment, I pushed him away. Caught off guard, Samuel spilled the porridge all over the floor. The porcelain bowl shattered. "Samuel, let's get a divorce." "Pearl." He cut me off calmly. My wife is you, and only you. I looked up, and Samuel's face was gentle, yet his eyes were like a bottomless lake. He smiled faintly, but his voice was icily detached. Don't throw a tantrum. This is my fault, but you know, Pearl. No one else would ever want you but me. He was so certain. I looked into Samuel's eyes. In the still lake, I saw his hidden emotions. Mocking. Pitying. Condescending. Samuel and I had met in a scene straight from a tragic play. The princess had been violated by a teacher, and the knight had suddenly appeared. He saved the wounded princess. The police station lights were bright in the dead of night. I sat on a chair in the hallway, too afraid to close my eyes. Samuel sat beside me, silent. Even under bright lights, the darkness weighed heavily on me. In the silent night, I broke down piece by piece. Then, a jacket, warm with his body heat, covered me. Samuel's voice was raspy from anger. He said, Pearl, it's over. It won't be long before he's punished. You're a wonderful girl. I looked at him through my tear-filled eyes. There was a scratch on his face, a mark left by the professor he'd pinned to the ground. Does it hurt? He froze. No. As long as I saved you, it was worth it. On our wedding night, when he was drunk, he repeated those words. He said, the most worthwhile thing I ever did was to hear the noise and rush in to save you. Time proves the worth of things. Some grow more precious with age. Unfortunately, my feelings for Samuel were never that kind. My thoughts returned to the present. I lowered my gaze, not refuting his words. No one else would ever want you but me. I simply stood up and said calmly, I'm going to work. When I arrived at the office, after discussing a project with my boss, Willow, she suddenly stopped me. Pearl. I looked at her, and she pointed to her face. What's wrong? Working harder as you move up? Haven't been sleeping well? I'd worked with Willow for years, rising from an unknown designer to a celebrated name, then into management, faster and harder than others. I smiled, because I love the job. Willow smiled, too. Health first. You've got an interview soon, rest well, and look your best. I nodded. After work, I waited for Samuel to pick me up as usual. But he didn't show. I called multiple times, but no answer. Finally, I called his colleague, who explained. An employee got sick and fainted at the office this afternoon. Samuel took her to the hospital. I froze and blurted out, Who? Oh, you'd know her. Samuel's intern, the new girl. I see. I hung up and was about to call a car, but my fingers hesitated over the screen. Suddenly, a Maybach pulled up in front of me. The passenger side window rolled down, revealing a face of refined elegance. Ryder leaned over with a lazy smile. Well, fancy running into you, Miss Pearl. Not going to invite a good Samaritan to dinner? My brow furrowed, then I smiled, sure. It was Ryder who had sent me that photo of Samuel and Ella. Half a month earlier, he'd been coordinating a project with me, and we started contacting each other more frequently. We hadn't known each other well before. All I knew was that he was Samuel's college roommate and the guy who got teary-eyed, drinking to the end at our wedding. I had joked with Samuel about having such a loyal friend back then. He just smiled, but his expression looked slightly forced. I didn't understand it back then, but now I do. Ryder had reserved a private dining space, small, intimate, and with dishes all catered to my taste. When are you getting a divorce? Ryder suddenly asked. I almost choked on my tea. I forced it down and looked up, regaining my composure. Mr. Ryder, are you always this concerned about your colleagues' private lives? Ryder sat across from me, his face illuminated in fragmented light from the intricate lampshade above. Though only a few months younger than Samuel, he still carried a youthful boldness even after years in the business world. Can't you tell? He propped his face on his hand, gazing at me with a smirk. I'm trying to poach someone. The look on his face was serious, but oddly open. I'm worried if I wait until you're divorced, I'll have no chance. He continued, I've had a crush on you forever. Samuel got lucky marrying you, and now I've finally waited him out. Pearl. His chin rested on his hand, and he looked at me with the eyes of a boy, maybe 15 or 16, glancing at his crush in a white dress from the window. Cheating is unforgivable. You've crossed a line. I put down my chopsticks, stood up, and reached for my bag. Mr. Ryder, I'll cover this meal. We're even now. My private life doesn't need interference. Next time we meet, it's strictly business. Pearl. I heard him rise hurriedly behind me, the scrape of his chair against the floor jarring. I settled the bill and walked briskly out of the restaurant. Pearl. My sleeve was tugged gently, not too hard. Behind me, Ryder's voice sounded small and hurt. I'm sorry. I know it was wrong to meddle in your private life. I won't do it again. I turned around and met his gaze. Ryder had beautiful eyes that glistened, catching the moonlight. I just feel like he doesn't deserve you, Pearl. You deserve someone better. I'm not naive. The way Ryder looked at me was painfully direct, unfiltered love shining plainly in his eyes. But I smiled. You don't understand. Don't understand, what? Ryder asked, confused. I didn't explain. Ryder and I weren't close enough for me to lay out my past completely. When that incident happened, I was dating someone. For a long time afterward, I'd fall into nightmares at night. I couldn't understand why, even though it was someone else's mistake, I, the victim, was the one lying awake. My boyfriend at the time, Joseph, didn't visit me in the hospital until the 4th day. He brought plenty of things, my favorite foods, and a collection I'd been admiring for a long time. He put everything down, peeled an apple by my bedside, and, just as he was leaving, said, Pearl, let's end it here. I leaned back against the headboard, watching him, silent. He broke down under my gaze, his head lowering. I know you're wonderful, I know this isn't your fault. But, Pearl, do you realize? His eyes shot up, brimming with almost ridiculous tears. I'm afraid that every time we're close, I'll remember that the professor. It's my fault, he muttered. It was as if our roles had reversed, he seemed like the one left behind. I'm too weak. I'm not strong enough. It's all my fault. Pearl, you're wonderful. It's my fault. It's me. I can't get past this. I turned my head, looking at the fading light outside. I understand, I replied simply. Samuel's remark that no one would accept me wasn't just a curse. He knew. He knew that human nature is all too predictable. Ryder drove me home. It wasn't exactly a bitter end to the evening. I didn't really blame him. As I got out of the car, he suddenly called out, Pearl. When I turned back, he thrust a huge bouquet into my arms. His ears turned as red as the roses I was holding. I got these for you. I hope they cheer you up. Then, as if afraid I'd refuse, he practically fled, driving off. I held the flowers and went upstairs. The door opened, revealing Samuel's dark expression. His face was clouded over like an ominous twilight. I rarely saw him lose his cool. Even when I'd caught him cheating, he'd kept his composure. He was certain I couldn't leave him. Ignoring him, I walked past, placing the flowers on the coffee table. A warm presence closed in from behind me, and I was suddenly pulled onto the couch. Soft cushions absorbed the impact. Samuel leaned over me, seeming on the edge of fury. Who was that, Pearl? You saw. My tone was calm. He'd seen the man, but he hadn't recognized Ryder. I saw him bring my wife home. I saw him give my wife a huge bouquet of roses. What else am I supposed to see? He sneered, perhaps, you two in bed. Samuel. I cut him off sharply. He gave a slight smile, turbulent emotions roiling in his eyes, verging on something uncontrollable. He leaned closer, whispering, hand tracing under the hem of my shirt. Does he know? His voice was both cruel and innocent. Does he know your professor once had you pinned under him? What about you? The draft slipping beneath my shirt made me shiver. I clenched the sharp object on my keychain. Samuel, your colleague told me you took Ella to the hospital today? My other hand brushed against Samuel's temple. Am I supposed to just look the other way so you can keep enjoying your little harem? The moment I spoke, Samuel's tension melted like ice. He curved his eyebrows into a soft smile. You're jealous, aren't you, Pearl, he said. Today was a coincidence. I just happened to have a car. It was urgent, so I gave her a lift to the hospital. I'll break it off with her immediately. If it makes you happy, I'll never get too close to her again. Samuel pressed a kiss to my forehead. Don't try to make me jealous again, Pearl. You're the only one I'll ever love. I just looked at him, saying nothing. After that day, Samuel seemed to keep his promise, drawing a clear line with Ella. Things between us felt like they'd gone back to the way they were. Ryder continued working with our company, so I still saw him often. One day after work, I got another message from him. I'm sorry. But I still have to say it. Don't let Samuel fool you. You can't pretend nothing happened. Cheating is either none or endless. I lowered my eyes, replying. Got it. Thank you. Of course I knew, cheating is only ever once or countless times. But what I wanted wasn't yet in my hands. A few days later, I felt unwell at work. I'd always been a bit frail, and I guessed it was low blood sugar mixed with a cold. My head was foggy, so that afternoon, I went to the hospital for a checkup. The hospital was loud and chaotic. With my chart in hand, I wandered through the labyrinthine halls, eventually getting lost. I was about to ask a nurse for directions when I stopped. Through the crowd, I spotted Samuel. He was supporting someone, his lips gently curved, his profile softened with warmth. Next to him was Ella, her gaze lowered as she lightly caressed her still flat stomach. The two looked like nothing more than a blissfully ordinary, happily married couple. My head pounded, as though it were about to split open. I stood frozen, watching them. Sensing something, Ella looked up, meeting my gaze. She didn't flee this time. She just looked at me, lifting a victorious smile. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, dialing his number. Samuel paused, taking out his phone and answering it. What's up, Pearl? Samuel. My voice was raspy from the pain. He immediately sounded concerned. Pearl? Where are you? The world blurred as pain clouded my vision. I felt a laugh bubble up, but was too weak to let it out. Turn around. I said, Samuel, turn around. Before darkness engulfed me, my last sight was Samuel's face, stricken with panic and helplessness, running towards me. When I woke up in the hospital bed, the last traces of sunlight lingered in the sky. You're awake? Pearl, want something to eat? It wasn't Samuel. I turned my head and saw the redness in Ryder's eyes. Why are you here? I came to your office to discuss the contract, and your assistant said she was going to bring this document to you. I offered to deliver it, but couldn't reach you by phone. She contacted Samuel, who gave me the hospital address. Where's Samuel? Ryder hesitated. I didn't see him when I got here. I got up and stepped off the bed. Ryder tried to stop me. Maybe you should. I avoided him, walking straight to the window. Ryder had no choice but to hold my foredrip. The room was high up. From here, I could see the people walking below. And my husband with his mistress. They seemed to be arguing about something. I reached into my coat pocket for my phone. Just in time to see a message from an unknown number with a recent photo. It was an ultrasound image. Ella's message read. Miss Pearl, Samuel will make a wonderful father. Finally, I had it. The proof I needed of his affair. I let out a breath, and Ryder stood beside me, his voice trembling slightly. Pearl. Pearl. Don't be sad. I looked down and messaged Samuel. Let's get a divorce. The people below seemed to sense something. After glancing at his phone, he turned and headed toward the building. Ryder. I looked up at him. You should go. And you? Are you really going to keep dealing with him? He's having a baby with that woman. I said nothing, and Ryder stepped closer, taking one of my hands. The corners of his eyes had a lingering redness. Pearl. I'm begging you, don't keep going down this path. He'll never change. The door creaked open. And Samuel stood in the doorway, taking in the scene. He paused, his face briefly flashing with panic, then his expression changed. Pearl, you want a divorce? Is it because of him? Because of a coward who secretly loved you for over a decade but never had the guts to say it? Pearl, we. Before he could finish, Ryder punched him in the face. Samuel fought back, and neither held back. Samuel, you're despicable. You already married her, yet you still cheated. You're not good enough for her. Blood trickled down from Samuel's lip, but he suddenly laughed. Did you know? Did you know she was once assaulted by her own professor? Knowing that, would you still love her? The air seemed to freeze. This secret, which Samuel had once sworn he'd take to his grave, now came out so lightly. I watched Ryder's actions come to an abrupt halt, his face turning pale. He looked at me, his lips quivering as if he wanted to say something. Perhaps is it true, or I'm sorry. I could almost predict it. Leave, I said. Ryder. Now, only Samuel and I were left in the room. Once the door closed, he approached me, lowering his gaze. Pearl? Are you angry? I'm sorry, I didn't. Samuel. I didn't want to have any more entanglements with him. I said, let's divorce. No. He reached out, trying to grasp my hand. You always neglect yourself, and I can't stop worrying about you. Don't say things like that, Pearl. I'm the one who loves you most in this world. Pearl, please. Don't ever say that again. I lowered my eyes, looking at the hand he was holding, and used my other hand to pry his fingers off, one by one. Didn't you understand, Samuel? I looked at him, my face calm. I said, I don't love you anymore. As I left, Samuel lowered his gaze and didn't look at me. He only said, Pearl. You'll come back. I'm the only one by your side. I pretended not to see the glimmer in his eyes. After leaving the hospital, I didn't go home. I blocked Samuel's number and WeChat account. He registered a new phone number and messaged me daily. He said he didn't mean it. That day he was just too angry and lost control. As for Ella, he didn't love her. It was just a momentary lapse, driven by hormones. I never replied. And the company replaced Ryder with a new contact person. Everything seemed calm. Until that day. As I was leaving work, a crowd of reporters suddenly swarmed the front of the building. The security guards couldn't keep them away. I was in my office finishing up some tasks when there was a knock on the door. One of the young assistants, her face flushed and sweaty, frowned. Something's wrong, Pearl. You need to look. I took out my phone and opened the trending topics. I'd been on there a few times before. For making waves with my designs, or when a celebrity wore one of my dresses. But today, at the top of the entertainment page, were tags like #designer/professor. #designer Pearl. A buzzing noise filled my ears. Then my heart began to race, breathing became difficult, and my vision blurred. It was as if I'd been dragged back to that hospital room all those years ago. Lost in darkness, struggling. Encased in a cocoon. Pearl. Pearl. The assistant's voice suddenly sharpened. I snapped back, drenched in cold sweat. Pearl, are you okay? I'm fine. I steadied myself against the chair, rubbing my forehead, and clicked on the trending topic. It was about the scandal years ago when a professor from our college was dismissed. It was all true. But the first few comments in the thread read, never would have guessed. She dresses so flashy now. Maybe she seduced her professor on purpose? I'm an old college mate. Can't believe this happened. She only took a short break, then came back to class like nothing had happened. I don't buy it. Would someone with that experience go into this field? Poor professor. She probably seduced him to get grades, then played the victim. Gross. She probably used her body to get jobs, too. Bet someone else even drew her designs. The insults kept coming, one wave after another. Pearl. There was a knock on the office door, and Willow poked her head in. Pearl, security says it'll take a while to clear the front. How about you come home with me tonight? It'll be safer. I nodded. On the drive, I glanced at the trending topic still near the top. Beneath the malicious comments, there were still a few people who seemed rational. I rubbed my forehead, and Willow glanced at me. Want me to get the trend taken down? I shook my head. Then my phone rang, a call from an unknown number. But I knew it was Samuel. I could even tell that he was behind this whole mess, trying to push me back to him. See, only he would always be there for me. Just like back then. When Joseph left me. He showed up. Stayed by my side, telling me he'd always be there. I ended the call. Willow had prepared everything I needed. After a shower, I lay in bed, scrolling through their comments on my phone. Willow placed a steaming cup of hot Ovaltine beside the bed. Stop looking at it. It's just the same old slut-shaming insults over and over again. I closed the page and opened my WeChat. My messages were flooding with notifications, classmates, coworkers, old friends I hadn't seen in years, and even celebrities I'd worked with. Pearl, are you okay? I saw the trending topics. Let me know if you need anything. I'm so sorry, Senior. I wish I had known earlier. When you took those days off, I thought you were sick and even planned to visit you in the hospital. You said you'd be fine in a few days. I should have realized sooner. I've already argued with several people online. If you need me, just say the word. Pearl, where are you? Do you want me to get you off the trending list? I work in the media now, Pearl. If you need, I can help you do an interview to clarify everything. Pearl, don't worry. I'm tracking down whoever's spreading those lies. Once I find them, we're going to take them down. Pearl, your parents are always here for you. Don't be afraid. I raised my hand and wiped away a tear from the corner of my eye. What's wrong? Willow asked. I looked up and gave her a smile. Nothing. It's just. I realized I was never alone. Samuel was never my only lifeline. After I replied to all the messages, it was already late at night. Willow lay down beside me. Do you want to take a few days off? She asked. I put my phone down. No need. There's still a bit of work left on my current project. It wouldn't be fair to dump it on someone else, everyone's already busy with their own things. What about the trending topic? Let it be, I said with a slight smile. In this business, isn't attention the thing we crave most? If someone's handing it to me, I might as well take it. Willow paused, then rolled over to hug me tightly. Pearl. You're always so strong. Just know that you can lean on me sometimes, too. I looked up from her familiar, comforting embrace, my brows curving into a gentle smile. Well then, boss, I'll count on you to cover breakfast tomorrow. By now, security had adjusted, and they were adept at handling reporters outside the company. I still went to work as usual every day, though now and then, troublemakers would send disgusting packages or a group of men would gather outside demanding my dismissal as a scheming woman. I simply called the police. Because of my silence, the internet's curiosity hadn't waned. They started digging into my past. But the more they looked, the more people started realizing that things weren't adding up. More voices began to speak up in my defense. Some people posted their student IDs, some shared photos of us together, and others even shared old notes I'd written for them. Pearl is such a kind person. She was the one who encouraged me to keep evidence and went with me to the police, helping me protect my rights. If not for her, I don't think I could have stayed calm enough to keep the evidence. Now I understand, maybe she wanted to help me because she'd been through it herself. I'm still working to recover fully, but I'm trying to live life day by day. I just hope that one day, I can be as brave and strong as Pearl. The narrative began to turn in my favor, though some still clung stubbornly to the rumors. Interest only grew. The prices of my previous designs skyrocketed thanks to all the attention, so I took this chance to sell off old stock. Then, I released some unpublished designs I'd kept in reserve. One of my pieces ended up being the most popular thing I'd ever shared since I began my career. There were insults, encouragement, support, and condolences. I took it all in stride. Until finally, the frenzy began to cool. That's when I called a reporter and told her I wanted to do an interview. Before meeting with the media, I called Samuel. He picked up immediately. Pearl, he asked cautiously. Is it you? Are you all right? I've been trying to reach you. Let's meet up. He sounded thrilled for a moment, then quickly restrained himself. Now? Where are you? I'll come find you. I glanced at the time. 7 tonight. At my place. Are you okay, Pearl? You must have gone through a lot. When you come back, I hung up, fixed my clothes in the mirror, and reapplied my lipstick. Gone through a lot? Not at all. Living here with Willow, I was more at ease than ever. The interview was live. A friend offered to write a script for me, something to help control the narrative better. I declined. I told her to just start reading the top comments from the beginning. As the broadcast began, tens of thousands of viewers flooded in. The chat was an overwhelming stream of messages, some slandering me, others supporting me. My friend sat beside me, exchanging a few casual words before getting to the main questions. Ms. Pearl, you said you wanted to respond to the audience's questions. We picked out a few comments to read aloud. I nodded. Ms. Pearl, did you deliberately seduce the professor and then turn around to accuse him? No. The host paused, waiting as if I might say more. I looked back at her. Next one. Did you buy your degree or steal awards from others? No. Nothing to add? Facing the camera, I smiled. If anyone wants to question my degree or awards, there are official channels for that. If they have real evidence, they're welcome to report it. Did you get your job by selling yourself? I chuckled. No. Maybe try doing a quick internet search before you say such absurd things. How dare you wear skirts? Aren't you afraid? Why shouldn't I wear skirts? Was it because of my skirt that he did what he did? Then why blame the person wearing it and not the person having those thoughts? Don't you feel any shame? Moving on so quickly, does that mean you didn't care about your virtue? Why should I feel shame? Because I was a victim? If anyone should feel shame, it should be the convicted criminal. Or is it because I lost my virtue? Does virtue matter more than my life, my artistic value, my ability to live healthily and happily? Because I didn't stay miserable. Because I didn't cry, scream, or sink into despair. Because I didn't value purity over life. Because I moved on and lived well, even better than before. Is it because, deep down, you believe a woman's worth lies in her purity? So I should stay miserable, carry my trauma, cover up everything. To mourn my lost purity, and protect whatever's left of it? I laughed. No, I won't let someone else's crime destroy my entire life. I'll keep doing the work I love, wearing what I love, looking beautiful, and living each day fully. I'm still living well. In fact, I'll live even better. I want him to know that his crime is his own destruction, not mine. I'm not here because of rumors. Words alone don't hurt me. I'm here for others who've been through the same. I want to tell you, please, keep going. What matters most in this world is you. So please, over and over, fight for yourself, as many times as it takes. Save yourself from this world's fire and flood. After the broadcast, the host gave me a hug. Pearl. There was a faint shimmer of tears in her beautiful eyes. She said, I hope your future is always bright and clear. I replied, may we both be forever bright. As I was leaving, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure at the turn of the stairs. But in an instant, they disappeared. By the time I got home, it was already evening. The room was dark. I flipped the switch, and the space lit up instantly. Samuel was sitting by the table, looking up at me. His face looked lifeless and gray. Pearl. His voice was hoarse. You looked beautiful on TV. I stepped forward and placed the divorce papers on the table. I've had the agreement prepared by a lawyer. As the party at fault in the marriage, you might have to pay up a bit. He looked at me, silent for a moment. Can we not talk about this, Pearl? I don't want a divorce. If you don't want to sign, we can go through the courts. I have enough evidence for a judge to grant the divorce. And besides, Ella can't wait too much longer with the child, right? If that's what you're worried about, I'll have her terminate the pregnancy tomorrow. Pearl. I promise, I won't go looking for anyone else again. It was just an impulsive mistake with Ella, you know that. I've loved you for so many years, it was only a moment of foolishness, a lapse of judgment. Just sign it. I spoke softly, take a few minutes to look over it. If you keep stalling, I'll see you in court. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Willow, reminding me that 5 minutes had passed. I sent her an okay emoji in response. Samuel said nothing, taking the papers and flipping through them. It took him just a few seconds before he signed his name. Oh, and this apartment was purchased before we were married. Move out soon, I'm planning to sell it. Samuel didn't respond. He simply looked up at me, his eyes faintly glistening. I'll always be grateful that you saved me back then, Samuel. But you're no longer the person you were then. My friend is investigating who's been spreading the rumors about us. I told him to let it go. Let's just consider that to be repayment for the debt of gratitude. From now on, Samuel, keep your distance, our paths will cross again. He didn't reply, and I turned to leave. But behind me, I heard him choking back a sob. Pearl. Why is it that you've never leaned on me, not even a little? I didn't stop walking. The story of a hero saving a damsel in distress isn't always as blissful as the fairy tales make it out to be. The princess doesn't owe a stranger her heart just because he saved her life. What touched the princess was the feelings that developed over time, after getting to know each other. Another person may save your body, but only you can pull yourself out of the depths. During those days in the hospital, Samuel occasionally came to visit me. After I refused visitors, he stopped coming. There were days when I would sit on my hospital bed all day, doing nothing but staring off into space. From sunrise to dusk. Then, as the last bit of light was swallowed by darkness, I would hide under the covers. Only to wake up in the middle of the night. Day after day. Like a numb, sluggish puppet. Until one day, I pressed a fruit knife to my wrist. When I looked up, I saw a completely unfamiliar person in the mirror. She was ugly, hunched over, with messy hair and a blank expression. I forced a smile. And she smiled back. An uglier sight than crying. That wasn't Pearl. The knife fell from my hand. Stumbling, I made my way toward the mirror. That wasn't me. I was beautiful, capable. At the prime of my youth, I was attending my dream university, studying my dream major. Brimming with youthful pride and ambition. My future was bright and boundless. My eyes grew warm, and tears fell in large drops. Trembling, I reached out to touch the face in the mirror. She trembled too. The icy glass met my warm fingertips, but it felt as if I was burning. I'm sorry. I said. I'm so sorry, Pearl. I leaned my forehead against the mirror, tears soaking into my hospital gown. I almost gave up on you. I'm sorry. The woman in the mirror sobbed silently. After trending online, my account gained hundreds of thousands of followers, though there were still the occasional nasty comments. I simply reported and blocked those. For the ones that went too far, I saved the evidence and filed reports with the police. During the divorce cooling-off period, I continued staying at my boss's place. Taking advantage of the boss's generosity felt good. One day during lunch break, I left the coffee shop near the office and ran into Ella. She was standing on the side of the road in the sun, holding a box of belongings, her face pale. A colleague held an umbrella for me. I was planning to walk right past, but she called out to me, Pearl. You lunatic. You even went to my boss about this, all over some trivial matter. Thanks to you, we both lost our jobs. Are you satisfied now? Just because Samuel loves me, you had to make our lives miserable. How can you be so cruel? My colleague was about to scold her, but I held her back. Love you? I chuckled. So, love means telling you to give up the child? You're behind this, aren't you? You're insane. My colleague burst out laughing. Miss, Pearl is already divorced from that scumbag. If you enjoy picking up trash, then don't miss this one. Why don't you both get locked up together? You seem like the perfect match. I held my coffee, shook my head, and was about to leave. Pearl, you know, what I hate most about you is this attitude of not caring about anything. You act like nothing matters, yet it seems like you have everything. Have I ever taken anything from you? You just naturally repulse people. Pearl, just wait. Someday, I'll. There is no someday, Ella. I smiled, speaking as if it were just a simple fact. This is all there'll ever be for you. On the day Samuel and I went to finalize the divorce, my friends insisted on coming along to act as my bodyguards. To make sure Samuel couldn't get close to me. Seeing their constant vigilance, I laughed. Samuel stood on the other side of a human barrier, holding the divorce certificate and looking at me. He looked much worse for wear. His face seemed puffy from crying, and his once-fitting clothes looked loose. He tried to speak to me. Pearl. Pearl. The weather is just so amazing today. The second he opened his mouth, my friend immediately shouted. Come on, let's get going. Everyone's waiting for you. Waiting for what? To celebrate your newfound freedom. Ha ha ha. They gathered around, pushing me towards the car. Let's go. I laughed, joining in the fun with them. I didn't spare a glance back. The car stopped at the hotel. My friends linked their arms with mine and led me to the room. I gripped the door handle and pressed down. The moment the door opened, confetti and glitter rained down from above. I saw all the familiar faces, each one smiling brightly. They looked at me, cheering, "Congratulations on escaping that nightmare." I laughed and celebrated with them. As the party wound down, I stood by the window, letting the breeze clear my head. Willow knocked on the balcony door, and after I called her in, she stepped inside. I squinted at her and laughed, a little tipsy. Willow smiled and took out a box, placing it on the railing. I blinked, asking, "What's this?" "Take a look." She wouldn't say, so I looked myself. Inside, resting on a bed of red velvet, was a vintage watch I'd admired for a long time. The dial's colors were still vivid. I looked at it in surprise. It must have taken a lot of effort to find this. Willow smiled, resting her chin on her hand. I have a friend whose younger brother loves someone. Sometimes I hear him talk about his brother's life. Like the time he got drunk at his crush's wedding. Or how he recently reconnected with his first love, but in his excitement, ended up messing up his image. Then one day, my friend was drinking with his brother, and they both had a bit too much, so he called me and my husband to pick them up. When I arrived, his brother was still talking. I overheard bits and pieces. He was saying that his crush had gone through some tough times. As he talked, he started crying. His brother asked him what was wrong, and he said he felt heartbroken. He thought about how strong she was, about how painful and helpless she must have felt, going through it all alone. And he couldn't do anything for her. Then his older brother told him, "Just do what you can for her now, as long as you don't give up, there's still a chance to win her over." Guess what he said? I shook my head. Willow smiled, gazing at the dim lights in the distance. The memory of that dark bar came to mind. The lights glinted off the clear liquid, casting a reflection near the young man's eyes. Tears ran down his cheeks as he shook his head. He said, "I'm not going to pursue her anymore. I used to think if I worked a little harder, became a bit better, I'd be able to stand by her side. But now I realize I'm not good enough for her." It wasn't until later that I learned who she was. But he still couldn't let go, so he secretly hired extra security around our company. He said he texted you that afternoon, and when you replied that everything was fine, he knew you'd prepared for it all. When you went to the media company, he was there too, watching from the sidelines until it was over, then he quietly left. Now that you're doing well, he's applied to train at the overseas branch. His brother pleaded with me, saying he wanted to give his younger brother one last chance. The flight's at 10 p.m., so if you go now, you can still catch him. Willow looked at me and smiled gently. But still. No matter what, I'm on your side. I glanced at the antique watch one last time, then closed the box and pushed it back toward Willow. Forget it. Willow raised an eyebrow. Are you holding back because of concerns, or just being more cautious after what happened last time? No, I shook my head, smiling. I just didn't feel anything. Life is long. It doesn't have to be him, but it could be. Either way, I have my own confidence to lean on. Because I will always love myself. Afterward. The first time Samuel saw Pearl was when she gave her matriculation speech in front of a large crowd. She was beautiful and accomplished, with a quiet presence like a gentle brook, shallow, but giving an illusion of being deep enough to drown in. She was different from the others. From the moment she entered, she was a campus star. Whether it was joining various activities or winning numerous awards, she became a regular in the campus news. Pictures of her, unedited and without filters, didn't diminish her natural beauty at all. But despite all this, she was never arrogant or spoiled by her blessings. She was soft, like cotton, making it hard not to fall for her. On the day Pearl participated in yet another competition, Samuel bought a bouquet of flowers, struggling through the crowd to stand out. He handed the flowers to her. She accepted them with a smile, looking him in the eye as she thanked him sincerely. "Thank you. The flowers are beautiful." Samuel forgot the words he had prepared and stammered, "No, no problem." That was the first time Samuel looked closely into her eyes. They were like a clear autumn lake, glimmering as if drawing him in. Samuel heard his heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. 3 beats. 3 seconds. It only took 3 seconds to fall. In terms of having a crush on Pearl, Samuel couldn't compete with writer's history with her. But so what? It was just a crush. Besides, there were plenty of people who liked Pearl. Adding one more wouldn't make a difference. A crush was his own burden to bear. Pearl was like a bright moon in the sky, visible, but unreachable. She had so many people around her, adding another would only feel redundant. Samuel once thought he'd spend his whole life watching her from afar. Until fate gave him the chance to become her rescuer, the hero in her story. That's when his connection with Pearl began. From savior, to friend, to lover, to spouse. Everything fell into place so smoothly, it was almost unbelievable. He finally held his moon from his youth. Of course, he loved her. And no, he hadn't grown tired of her. But somewhere along the way, everything changed. Even after they married, Pearl remained popular. People lamented that she married young, but Pearl would smile and say, "My husband is wonderful." Yet, his anxiety and growing fear remained. "It's okay. It's okay," he reassured himself. Only he knew about Pearl's dark past. That was his way to get close to her and the chain that kept her by his side. As she rose step by step, gaining fame and money, surrounded by people with varying intentions, she still loved only him. Pearl still loved Samuel. This twisted love persisted, from fearing he'd lose her, to feeling certain she'd never leave. His infidelity was inevitable. No one could measure up to Pearl. Except Ella. The young woman's attempts at seduction weren't subtle, but he still chose to indulge. After all, Pearl would love him, only him. One wrong step led to another, and before he knew it, there was no turning back. After the divorce, he didn't know why he insisted on buying their former house. Pearl said she wouldn't accept installments, so he took out a loan. Maybe he wanted to hold on to something. At least the house still held traces of the love they once shared. Then he was fired from his job, unable to pay the mortgage. Desperate, he started sending out resumes everywhere. Any decent company, after glancing at his resume, gave him strange looks. Some rejected him outright, others, more politely, would wait a few days before apologetically turning him down. Until one day, a small-time boss whispered to him, "Your resume is decent, but you crossed Ms. Willow. Whoever hires you is picking a fight with her. Find somewhere else to go." Willow? Samuel dredged up a distant memory of her face, blurred and faded. All he remembered was that Pearl had worked for Willow right after she graduated. Willow's father had made poor decisions, and a half-brother had taken control of the family business, pushing Willow out of the family's inner circle. Samuel had advised Pearl at the time, "Think about it again. You're capable of finding something better. There's no need to." But Pearl had only smiled and said, "She's worth it." Later, Willow fought her way back with a single branch office, carving out a place at the very core of power in this city, enough that even her own father had to give way to her. Pearl, in turn, had become someone everyone in the business world wanted to connect with. She had always been more accomplished than he was, even now. No matter how low she'd fallen, she could bloom again, even brighter than before. Broken, yet whole once more. She was like a thriving grass, or a sturdy tree. He was captivated, entranced, and in love. But under the shadow of that love, his feelings of inadequacy and jealousy grew like a tangled vine. Jealous of her intelligence, her success, her income, her strength in adversity. jealous of so many things she would never know. Thankfully, she never knew. Debt collectors began pressing him urgently, leaving Samuel with no choice. After wasting 2 years, he needed a job fast. His looks earned him a spot at a private club with good pay. It was respectable work, but serving the wealthy wasn't always easy. 6 months into the job, Samuel encountered an old acquaintance there. A coworker frowned as he walked out, saying, "Ugh, another cheapskate acting like a big spender, ordering only the cheapest things. Giving orders left and right, here, you take this and bring it in for me." Samuel didn't have time to refuse and ended up with his arms full. That guy was senior, and challenging him would only bring trouble. Samuel had no choice but to carry the tray in. Inside were 4 people, a fat man sitting at the head, a slimmer one beside him, each flanked by a beautiful girl. Samuel set the plate on the table and immediately heard a slender man speak up. "Hey, you." Before he could finish, the door was kicked open, and another person stormed in, charging at him, shouting, "James, you piece of trash. How dare you mess around with another woman? What happened to the promises you made when you married me?" The man was slapped several times, his hair pulled, and he snapped back, reaching out to fight back. "You crazy woman. I'm out here for business, and you just start losing it again? Business? You think you need a mistress for that? This isn't the first time. Let me tell you, James, you're never getting rid of me. You said you'd treat me well." "Treat you well?" he scoffed, throwing a punch and sending her to the ground. "You worthless woman who aborted another man's child, you're still living off of me. Just keep quiet and behave yourself. Otherwise, tomorrow, I'll be the one kicking you out." The woman on the floor whimpered. Samuel lowered his head but couldn't resist glancing over. Amidst the disheveled hair, he saw a familiar face, Ella. She was no longer young, no longer sweet. Just a few short years had aged her as if she'd lived a decade, stripping away all the edges of her once vibrant self, leaving her bitter and unrecognizable. His former lover had fallen this low. Samuel couldn't deny he bore some responsibility for her fate, yet as he looked at her, he felt not the slightest ripple of emotion. He arranged the plate, then bowed his head and slipped out. Before the door closed, he could still hear her, hysterical, heartbroken. Once he'd finished delivering, Samuel continued with his work. The clients here were relatively tame, but he'd seen much worse, drunk patrons who'd gone wild, swinging bottles at others. He'd been on the receiving end once, ending up in a hospital bed for a month. As he carried another tray, moving carefully, someone suddenly appeared, and Samuel couldn't avoid them in time. He collided with the person and quickly lowered his head in apology, but the man said nothing. Just as Samuel tried to step back, hot water was poured over his head. It wasn't scalding, but just hot enough to sting painfully. He bowed. "I'm very sorry, sir. It was my mistake." The man in front of him wasn't satisfied and slammed the water jug into Samuel's face twice. "You don't even know to step aside for customers? Is this how they train you here?" The others in the room merely watched with amusement. Samuel lowered his head in humiliation. "I apologize." Outside, his co-workers craned their necks, some stifling laughter as they watched him. Samuel dug his nails into his hand to steady himself. "How should you apologize to show sincerity?" The man suddenly swung the jug toward his head, striking him hard. Samuel was shoved out the door, his head throbbing. The humility he worked so hard to maintain teetered on the edge of collapse. The whispering of his colleagues in the hallway only deepened his shame and pain. Then he heard footsteps coming from the stairs. The sound of high heels was oddly familiar, accompanied by someone's sycophantic voice. "Ms. Pearl, we've prepared your VIP suite with your favorite appetizers. This way, please." The voices grew closer. Just as the troublemaker was about to grab Samuel by the collar, he looked up, defiant, ignoring the man entirely. It was Pearl. Her face was both strange and familiar at the far end of the hallway. She still carried herself with elegance, untouched by the harshness of life, as if time had favored her. In these years they'd been apart, she seemed to have thrived, her complexion vibrant, like spring blossoms. In the brief moment he stood there, frozen, her heels brushed past him, their eyes meeting briefly before parting. Samuel knew Pearl recognized him. He had imagined their reunion countless times. Whether she loved him or hated him, at least their bond had once been that deep. Yet he'd never imagined this, being so insignificant in her eyes, like a speck of dust brushed aside. All the times he'd been shut out by companies, excluded by colleagues, bullied by his superiors, humiliated by clients who once looked up to him, none of it stung as much as this. His body reacted before his mind did. Pearl. Stumbling to his feet, he gathered all his strength. Pearl. He was knocked down again, a fist landing on his face. But he ignored it, his gaze fixed only on her retreating figure. Watching her walk further and further away. He'd forgotten. Whether in the past or now, Pearl had always moved forward, never looking back. End of story.